Novice Asian Parl. Paneling with me are my panelists. Panelists, please introduce yourselves by the order of tab, starting with Ella.
Hi, congratulations and good luck to the round.
Hello, I'm Jayson. Congratulations for making it this far and good luck on the round.
Hello, I'm Princess. I'm one of the panel. Good luck to both teams.
Hi, I'm Solborn. Good luck.
All right, perfect. Just a few reminders then. Firstly, please put your speaker positions on the chat, just so we can give like the right, maybe like the FBS to the right speaker. Secondly, please also time yourselves. I will be timing you guys, but I won't be reminding you through the chat, like the timestamps. So we will stop taking notes at like 7 minutes, 15 seconds. If a panelist can time them through the chat, that would be appreciated. Thirdly, POIs are not mandatory, but I encourage you guys to please take one. So just so that, all right, that's thank you, Princess. Just so that the debate is much more engaging. With that said, calling the House into order, debating on the motion. This House regrets the normalization of utang na loob. Let's have Prime Minister. Here, here.
Someone give me a pen. Hello. Could I be heard?
Yep, you're audible.
Can I be seen?
Yes.
Um, so good afternoon, everyone. I am Kayla T. Castro. My preferred pronouns are she and her. Preferred POI time is anytime during my speech. Wait, but first, I would like to actually make a shout out speech, like just a minute. Okay. Before I start, I would like to start with a small speech. My name is Kayla T. Castro, a grade 11 student. I would just like to say that I'm so grateful to be here. I really never expected to get this far, especially in debate, especially that I just started debate last year. But I am really blessed and thankful to be here, especially with the help, support, and love of these specific people. One, my best friend for 7 years, almost eight, Precious Cruz, who's always been there for me, who's always been so patient and loving, and every stage she was always here, even until now. And second, my debate partners here with me right now, Sarah and Kuya Thomas, who I couldn't have done this without them, and they have like been a pillar of support for me also. Three, XDC Club from CDO, who made me really grow. Like specific people, our moderators, Sir Kirk Goated, Kuya Huzan, because he has always like really trained us to be the best we can, and he's always been a pillar of support also. Like whenever we were demotivated, he would always be there to motivate us and give us good tips. And other people in XDC, Kuya Ben, Kuya Luke, my mother, Kuya Thomas, my father, and Ate Az. Okay, that is the end of my shoutout speech. Okay, I will be starting my real speech now. In 3, 2, 1, go. When we plant the seed of kindness and mistake it for a culture of death, we become stuck in a system that requires us to keep giving even if we don't have the capacity to anymore, and even when things do not become genuine anymore. Moving on to my standards then. When do we regret something? One, when it principally has done more harm than good. The Philippines has this culture of being kind, showing hospitality, even in CDO, known as the City of Golden Friendship. Even most tourists who come to our country say that we are kind and say that we do this and that. Although being kind is not inherently bad, it comes to a point where this kindness turns into a utility to let people do certain stuff for you. Because of this normalization, being kind and giving things to someone has caused us Filipinos to feel a sense of debt. And though over the years it has done a lot of, and through the years, it has done a lot of harm because we conform, because it is normal. We think that everything anyone does for us has to be returned. Two, when it has caused so much harm pragmatically because of the effect it has, principally, wherein we feel the burden to give back. We have to note that because utang na loob is defined as the lifetime of debt you have for someone, this won't go away in a person, and instead it will just continue to foster in them. It's going to continue to influence the way they act, and the way they act in a way where it is able to benefit the one you owe, it comes to a point where where we begin to forget not only about ourselves but what true kindness really means. Op might say that utang na loob is necessary because through this, people are able to feel incentivized to actually realize to give back, incentivized to be quote unquote kind, so that people won't feel entitled to the things people give us. And even though we bite the bullet and say this could somehow be true, I will give you two reasons why it isn't and why it is better in our world. A, it's better because people will still actually be incentivized to repay others, but in our world, it comes from a place where people don't feel indebted and they don't feel like if they don't repay, then this other party would hate them and they wouldn't have to hate themselves for not being able to give as well. B, on your side, entitlement is actually more possible because when we do not regret the normalization of this utang na loob, you are also putting it in a perspective where this other party is entitled to a lifelong debt from the person they helped, which is obviously bad. Three, when it restricts people from actually growing. In this way, we don't see utang na loob as a moral thing anymore. We don't see it as, oh, someone helped me, so I want to help them back whenever they need it. It has created a society where our mindset is set on the deal because we are indebted to people. It becomes an obligation for us to give back. A lot of negative things has stemmed out from this utang na loob. For example, parents who say, I gave birth to you, I gave life to you, so you must stay here in Cagayan. So you couldn't go to, for example, UP or ADMO or abroad or any school you want to because I gave you the things you need in life. You're supposed to stay with me. You owe me something. Or friends, for example, who help you with a test, who help you study, and because they did that, for some reason, they now expect you to pay for all of their lunches. Or three, countries who give us trade or help because this utang na loob is normalized, we feel that we are indebted to them and we have to keep on giving and giving and giving. We get stuck in this mindset that we can't leave this other party alone until we feel satisfied enough, until we feel like we've actually paid them enough. But you have to take note because Filipinos, especially Filipinos, have this tendency to please people, and because of the general fact humans will never feel content, this is going to be an unending cycle for us that forever puts us into this moral burden. Okay, moving on to my context then. Where does the need to regret the normalization of utang na loob come from then? One, because again, the Philippines is deeply rooted in this kind of culture. It has caused a lot of abuse and corruption in our society. Because this has reached a state of normalization to the point of abuse, it excuses the action of people who abuse us. Like, for example, again, the microlens for parents, the friends, or maybe even countries who help us with, for example, our debt or economy or the state of our nation. Because this is normalized, it looks like, for example, the Philippines giving and giving and giving, even though we do not have the capacity to. You have to take note that the Philippines is a developing country who is very corrupt and cannot even help themselves because we don't even have the capacity in the first place. Repayment is not just in the form of being kind and helping someone with tests, it also comes in repaying by resources. And in the context of the Philippines, in a national perspective, it has led our country to a big downslope where we keep trying to help others of those who we are indebted to when we cannot even help ourselves. Two, we end up degrading ourselves. We feel like just because we can't give back, suddenly we're not enough and we end up feeling bad about it. You cannot tell me, panel, that if someone did something so great for you, you cannot tell that you won't feel as if you won't feel indebted to them. So this normalization ends up putting these people who feel indebted in a corner that they will continue to beat themselves up in until they feel like they have repaid the other party. Three, it creates our bad representation of what giving to people actually means. Because this is normalized, giving to people looks like, oh, because you helped me and not fail my entrance exam for ADMU or for UP, I'm gonna liberate you whenever you want, or I'm gonna let you live in my house in the future. But you have to take note that again, this can be easily abused, and it has been easily abused in the history and even in the status quo. One good deed by someone does not equate to them being good to you forever. And when we normalize this, utang na loob, we actively choose to turn a blind eye on this. Okay, how does this look like then? It looks like focusing on unconditional love where you do not expect someone to give something to you just because you gave something. At the end of the day, this is what matters. It is unconditional love that matters. Okay, moving on to my argument then. One, when you allow this utang na loob to dominate people's moral compass, then it won't take long till someone uses it to take advantage of vulnerable people who don't see that their friend has ulterior motives. A lot of people that feel so indebted that they end up giving their all, even when they do not want to, purely because they feel guilt-tripped into doing it. In opposition's world, because they allow utang na loob, they are complicit witnesses to the exploitation of everyday people who does not have this spine to defend themselves. If opposition wants to win, they have to justify why seeing the kids as investments is okay, why enslaving the Philippines to US because they helped us after Spain, and why a transactional heavy relationship should be the norm. And that is the end of my speech, and I am proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Let's have Leader of Opposition. Here, here.
Hello, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Naka-on cam na ba to? Hello. Um, um, okay. Can I have some moment to at least arrange my papers? Wait lang, wait lang. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Damn, the quality. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Wait lang. Mic test, mic test. Last one. Call out. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jalina Pisarip, and I'm the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition in this debate. And my preferred pronouns are he and him. And I would like to, wait lang, okay. And I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Okay. Repay good things with also good things too. Now, in this debate, our house will support the idea of normalization of utang na loob. Now, but before before all of the arguments and the analysis, I will explain how the opposition side will work on this debate. First, the winning points is by first of all we have the definitional terms. We'll explain what is utang na loob in the first place, and what are the current scenario currently going on, and what is the most likely what to happen in our current society. And next we have also the mid analysis. We will be explaining of how it will possibly work now next, and the variants. Moving on, why is this a motion in the first place? Okay, this is a motion in the first place because we Filipinos are very communal people. We are very supportive to one another. We support in every moment if they are actually thing in crisis or emergency. We support that. But first of all, utang na loob is a Filipino cultural trait that may mean the depth or of gratitude and reciprocity. For example, if someone give you 5 pesos, then you also give them 5 pesos or something equivalent to that exchange at the right time, at the right moment. Now, by normalization, it is making something normal. So making utang na loob normal means helps us in a different lot ways, which I will be explaining later. Now, the origin of this utang na loob is from bayanihan in our culture or in those old times, because bayanihan requires a lot of people and cooperation to help the person in need. For example, carrying the house of someone, or at least carrying the burden of someone, to at least share them with us and help them. Now, in our current status quo, in our world right now, it is actually difficult to reach out or at least to socialize with other people, because because people nowadays, they paint normalization as something bad and something negative, which I will be explaining later. But first of all, I will make call outs of what the Prime Minister have said earlier. For example, what the part about the entitlement. Okay, the example na you should have an obligation to repay me because pinanganak kita. Now that is actually kind of false, because in the first place, it is a human right to live on earth. It is also a kind of fallacy and a false, because you do not have the power to be chosen in this world, and you do not have consent, at least to that you are born in this world. And that is kind of false of what he said. Now moving on. Moving on to the current status quo. Now, it is actually difficult to have a human interaction, at least social interaction right now, because especially now Gen Zs, they are different kind of people right now. Especially if you do not, if you are not careful, then you might go on the wrong person. Now, but now also now moving on, people are also now individualist, because we millennials does now are aware of what they are now. They are aware what they represent or what they are characteristics right now. That's why people are now individualistic, at least now. Therefore, people will not only have lose the essence of at least helping with it. They are also losing the ability to at least go with the flow with of other people now, which is kind of troublesome, because we Filipinos are very communal. We are people from we are very very community servicial person, but that does not mean that we lose the self identity of us. We still have that trait, because just because you're called that doesn't mean you have a culture, something that thing is actually your entire personality. That is just a part or aspect of your characteristic. Now making normalization of utang na loob makes us also to be aware of the harms. Yes, of course, if there are new ideas, there will be also harms. But however, we can mitigate it, of how those harms of utang na loob will come, and that part will be explained by Deputy Leader of Opposition for more details. Now let us move on to the comparisons. Now for the comparisons, we have the old utang na loob idea and new utang na loob na idea. In old utang na loob idea, that idea is still new, so people might not know the idea of normalizing it, of that there might be harms, of course, or because there might be harms in the future, of course, because those people, from what I said earlier, that utang na loob stems from bayanihan, and those people in that era or in that year, they have a lot of problems in their society, so they needed help. That's why utang na loob is used as a for safety net for those people. Now in the current status quo, or in the current scenario, in modern era, utang na loob is also the same, but like giving like reciprocating things and gratitude and like depth of gratitude. However, we still in the current scenario, we now know at least the current limitation and the capacity of people right now. Now, social, yes, of course, there will be social expectation of reciprocating something, but it's our obligation to reciprocate. However, we still have boundaries. We still have human decency of what we need to reciprocate. And now, since we are Gen Zs, we are more aware of the current situations. We are now much more know of what our capabilities are. So if we are lacking something, we must know that, this is all we can do, at least to reciprocate. So we have, that's what I said earlier, that utang na loob is a reciprocating of things that is comes on right time and right moment. Now, we still are human. Normalization will help us to know our own capabilities. It will help us in understanding with each other. Now, did you know that activists and there are a lot of activities and guerrillas or generation activities in the Philippines because of what happened happened in the past. For example, those heroes fought for independence. And in our retrospective in the opposition house, people will having these qualities of utang na loob will help not only because of what they use it to at least have the ability to feel why is it to protect the country, or at least like we are pushing the idea of independence also because we are feeling those out of gratitude, like the entire utang na loob of those heroes in the past. That's why it is not only mitigate the problems, but it will also help them with with the normalization of people. People will not also with the normalization of utang na loob. It will also help people to be not ashamed to reach out to other people, because in our culture is slowly fading away because we are adapting to Western culture. It is true because there are a lot of trends on social medias now. Ethical values, and it is our social obligation to know and to protect our own culture, because we Filipinos, we maintain the relationship with our relatives and people. It's difficult to maintain social relationships. So pushing this normalization will help us in more relationship problems, and it also promotes empathy and connection. It makes so much. It makes so because people are very communal, and with all those proudly oppose.
All right, thank you for that speech. Let's have Deputy Prime Minister here.
Hi, Deputy Prime Minister's here. Thank you. Okay. Before I'll be starting my speech, I want to first state that my name is Sarah Nastal. I'm 16 years old, a grade 11 student that's proud to be representing XU SHS. And before my speech, I want to give out a shout out to the following people. First, I want to thank my goated Prime Minister, Kayla, and my goated whip, Thomas, as well. Two, I want to thank both my debate clubs from not just XU, but also from TCA for training me. And three, I want to thank my college seniors, Kuya Thomas and Ate Emma. And number four, I want to thank my friends in Butuan for never doubting me. I'm going to state a few names. For example, Piper, Kana, Colin, Alexis, Maxine, Hailey, and Harvey. I want to thank you all for being here and always supporting me throughout my high school years. Five, I want to thank my friends in Cagayan for supporting me as well. Sophie and Del, I love you both very much. I would not have survived till here without you guys. And six, I want to lastly thank both Ate Ann and my parents for driving me to my debate trainings. Even when these debate trainings end in the middle of the night, you still put in the effort to support my extracurriculars and my passion for debate. So I want to thank you both greatly for that. And with that, I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. First, I want to start with the response. One, they say it's essentially an eye for an eye and posit how Filipino culture is about equality because they hate utang na loob. When that's false, because utang na loob is essentially a lifelong debt as characterized in one of our most important parts of Filipino culture, which is Nole Me Tangare, between Crias Misto and Elias, which shows out the context behind the concept of utang na loob. So it shows how this is already different from simply an eye from an eye. But now, we must ask ourselves, which side has more authentic relationships, panel? It is ours, for reasons. One, virtue signaling. Panel, it doesn't take a genius to put 2 and 2 together to realize how easily utang na loob can be used to take advantage of other people. For examples, one, utang na loob has affected us on a national scale as well, because now we think we are indebted to the USA, that because the USA has bought us up from the Spaniards, it's suddenly framed in a way that they were the ones actually saving us, when in reality, we are in debt. When in reality, they are both as oppressive that caused both detrimental harms to the Philippines. Why would we want to thank our oppressors for minor benefits when they have degraded, abused, and shot thousands of martyrs? But in government's world, because we support the utang na loob and status quo, then the Filipinos somehow feel indebted to these oppressors and even glorify their Western culture because they think we are indebted to them. Because of this, despite being free for centuries, you can still see the effects of this in status quo. We are stuck in self-colonization simply because we cannot let go of our utang na loob to the USA. But two, parental guilt tripping is rampant in the Philippines. So many children are guilt tripped by their Filipino parents that they owe them their salary, opportunities, then the time, simply because they were the people that put a roof over their head. But in reality, it was these parents' choice to have these children, which means they agreed to the responsibility to provide for all their needs, like food, water, education, housing, clothing, and so on and so on. It is their responsibility to do it, whether the children has a say or not. Many abusive parents use this as an excuse to mentally abuse their children by saying that they have an utang na loob to fulfill. Because of this, so many Filipino children who never consented to being born, who never consented to being their parents' child, who never consented to live in these conditions, have no other choice or no way to opt out of this. Utang na loob keeps its Filipinos people trapped in their own people. This is important because one, it proves why my Prime Minister's framing is so crucial to the debate. She tells us how easy it is for vulnerable actors that opposition either ignores or does not provide a better alternative, by the way, to be exploited and taken advantage of by people who don't know how to defend themselves. By two, opposition has to defend a world where there is a drastic decline of authenticity, right? In their world, because they allow utang na loob, then they allow relationships in the Philippines to be built off of transactions, not love. Because they allow utang na loob, then they allow their relationships to be unauthentic and not based on what you can give on return. But because they allow utang na loob, then they allow the Filipino people to constantly be fake and to exploit each other, which builds a harmful environment panel. But reason two is stigmatization of people who don't do it, right? In government's world, when we allow the normalization, in opposition's world, when we allow the normalization of utang na loob, this means there's going to be backlash for these people who refuse to kneel down and obey to these society standards. When there's majority of societies blended by utang na loob, they're going to shame anyone who doesn't follow it because they are different. So what does this look like, panel? One, it means that that utang na loob is now dominating society. It is not only very difficult to be free from that mindset, but also to live in a society that they're constantly going to shame you for this panel. They're going to demonize the person who simply wants to break free from their parents' guilt tripping, or to be free from self-colonization, or for a micro scale, to be free from their exploitive friends who insist they have to pay back their lunch even when they have no incentive or real obligation to do so. So this means that two, people are going to try, when people try to escape it's going to ruin their reputation. The Philippines has always been known to love gossip. Once you show that you're not going to follow utang na loob, people are going to say that you're selfish, that rumors are going to spread around, that you're cheap, that your friends are going to drop you for being so self-centered, that your family will not want to associate with you because they think because they think you are the only person that cares for yourself. But two, this is important because you do not provide solace nor peace of mind for the people in the society. This goes for both people. First, it goes for people who follow utang na loob because they're forever stuck in a cycle that's not catered to them. They are forever stuck in a cycle that they're forced to lean down to. They're forever stuck in a cycle that they cannot escape. But two, the people who don't follow utang na loob never have moments of rest because they will constantly be crushed by society's comments and whispered rumors. They're constantly going to be shamed by the people around them, by their friends, their families, their peers, close ones, and even bosses. Is this really the world where the vulnerable actors are best off panels? But third extension, there's going to be less authentic relationships. Again, which side has more authentic relationships, panel? Because it's ours. Because in opposition's world, their relationships are built off of transactions and the value of people. It means they ignore the best and most fulfilling part of social interaction, unconditional love, panel. Whatever happened to that? Friendships should be built off of how you enjoy each other's company, how you're loyal to each other and prioritize the time spent with each other, not what your friendship can give you. That's not our friendship, that's a connection. At least here in government, we love out of love and not out of obligation. Our relationships with our parents are healthier because we're not pressured to pause our lives to stay with them. Our relationship with our friends are more happier and more fulfilling because we do not owe them and each other anything other than human decency. Only here in government do we answer the question, which side has more authentic relationships? And it's clear, it's ours. This is important because it means the people in our world are much happier and closer to each other, right? We have the better self-actualization in our world because the people actually care for each other's well-being. We do not just have connections because that's a capitalistic mindset that only views people for their value and what they can provide, but they have something much more authentic, viewing people as other humans that want to have real intimate relationships just like us. So then, panel, let me move on to my impacts. So what happens when we believe government's bastardized world? One, we release to vote buying. Not only does this affect the country on a national scale, but because there's utang na loob, politicians can use this to bastardize democratic systems and purchase votes to secure places in power that they do not deserve in the first place. They can use utang na loob to guilt trip these people into voting for them when they do not deserve these votes in the first place. They're just using this as a way to exploit and take advantage of the system and the people who are under the system. The people feel obligated to fulfill their promises to these politicians because if they do not comply, then not only are they going to get shot, but their families, their friends, their connections, and everyone who's associated with them is also going to get shot and be harmed in the process. Is this really the world where the most vulnerable actor, the people, are better off, panel? But this removes democracy as a whole. At least here in government, we have better governance in our world because we do not allow corruption to take advantage of vulnerable people, just like what my Prime Minister stated, wherein it's very easy to take advantage of vulnerable people. We also have a better world with less corruption in the Philippines, right? Which is safer for the most vulnerable actors of the debate, the people. Again, Yet, we're going to have better governance with less corruption because now the people are allowed to actually vote for politicians that are actually qualified for these positions and not just be bribed by politicians who threaten to shoot them if they do not accept the money or do not vote for them. Is this really the best? This is important because the pros heavily outweigh the cons. Every benefit opposition can try to provide us simply falls short because they cannot outweigh the cons that they come with it. And if they bite the bullet, and they are witnesses in the bastardization of Filipinos' relationships and their friends, their families, and their government. And for all of those reasons, my name is Sarah Nestal, and we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Let's have Deputy Leader of Op. Here.
Hi, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Pangit mo naman nakahud na ako. I'm sorry. Wait, just a few seconds to arrange my timer and like prep my entire face lock. Oh, I was muted. Okay, am I visible?
Yep, you're visible.
How do I? Do we have something? I'm sorry. A lot of difficulties right now. Hang on. Okay, I think I'm visible now. Hawakin mo na throughout. Diyan na lang ba ako?
I think it's better.
Yeah.
Okay, switching cameras. I'm so sorry for the delay. Negative aura. I was muted. I'm so sorry. Okay. I was mentioning my firstly. Hi everyone. My name is Ras. Prefer to see him. I think POI is at the 5th minute mark. But before that, I'd just like to give out a few shout outs. Firstly, to my family. I give this a lot to them because it was my decision to firstly get into debate. But they're the one who's able to actually encourage me to go through with every single championship up until now. Secondly, to Tribune's family. They were able to support me all throughout any debate championship, whether it's local or even international or even national. Thirdly, to my seniors, teaching us from what debate is to metrics such as mechanisms, whatever that may be. And to Watermelon, my first regular friends, love you guys. And to my partners, Jessa and Jal, thank you so much. To Jessa, I hope we get to partner soon in any British Parliament in the British parliamentary competition. And secondly, to Jal, congratulations, our Prime Minister. This is his first competition as well as his first grand appearance. With those reasons said, I'm so thankful to all the friends who have been able to help me throughout my life, whether when I help them and also when they help me. Starting my speech, Deputy Leader of Opposition in 3, 2, 1. If you heard my shoutouts, you'd assume that I've already been able to help individuals as well as them being able to help me back. Meaning then, utang na loob is something that has been working for me and other individuals within the collective. Let's take into account how overall this debate revolves around evaluating whether the normalization of utang na loob by providing the proper impacts and having more nuanced discussion regarding and why nots with further retrospective analysis of whether or not we would actually be better off, for example, with or without the normalization of utang na loob. Where as early on as leader of opposition, you actually get this type of get this type of proving, but further proving will actually happen within my speech. When we take a look at the issues then, but firstly, responses and further discussions, where I have three or two main responses for government side. Firstly, as a clarification first, they told us that we tell you that government is being very dismissive and actually is misrepresenting us as a whole, because they told us how utang na loob is something more of a social obligation, which is something that we said. But in reality, we tell you again and again that utang na loob is not an obligation. It's not something that actually has a contract, for example. It's not something that you have to sign a piece of paper for just because you need some help, for example, from someone you know. No, we tell you this is a social initiative, something that you actually do voluntarily to help an individual that you actually have a connection to, for example, whether it be Jasa or Jal or my own parents or my cousins, for example. Secondly, we tell you in the argument regarding entitlement when your mother actually gives birth to you, or in genuinity, for example, their claim about ingenuity. This is not true, because in the status quo in itself, where there's so much illegal solvency for those who are marginalized, for example, those who are in poor areas, for example, such as 4Ps or 5-6, for example, because these are the same type of harms that actually exist in the status quo that we're trying to regret in the very first place. Because rather than actually asking for help from other individuals, for example, like your friends or family, you'd go through these illegal ways to actually gain money just to survive and feed your children, for example. This is why we tell you gratitude does not necessarily mean that does not necessarily mean you're going to go. That gratitude does not necessarily mean coercion or just having to force someone to give something back to you just because you gave them a favor, for example. Let's take a look at their cases and further discussions then, right? Utang na loob, where this is just something that actually encourages people to actually help without signed contracts by something that is actually voluntarily. It is acts as a safeguard and of something for individuals, especially in the Philippines, and it's more sustainable in the very long run, where we already win on that metric alone, because normalization still points in still actually has where we tell you that it actually because this is true, because it actually looks like incentives, because this incentivizes helping one another and promoting empathy, for example, and having generosity, for example, for mutual individuals between both parties at the end of the day. Because this is true, because this looks like then helping your cousins, for example, family to pay for their tuition in college, for example, with the high amounts of pay that you have to actually do. Secondly, it looks like paying hospital bills, for example, for those individuals who got injured badly, for example. The impact here is simple, where marginalized people actually have help for example, and actually is easier and more reliable and to actually ask for help for individuals like your family or your cousins. This is the type of benefit that you only gain by having normalization actually happen in the very first place, because without normalization and regretting such, it only looks like vulnerable actors not being able to ask for help, especially without empathy, for example, where in our world we actually have empathy that is being celebrated at the end of the day. We tell you secondly that normalization does not necessarily mean cemented obligation, because this in our world we actually have boundaries, for example, and by setting boundaries that are still possible, because boundaries are still possible, for example, and recognizing that individuals still have limitations at the end of the day. And we tell you in the very first place, this utang na loob is a help without negotiation, not something that is legal or something that is actually obligation, for example. On our principal analysis then, when abuse and over-reliance on utang na loob might actually happen, we tell you this is not going to happen, because the normalization, meaning that the collective already knows this, meaning then it's already happening in the status quo, meaning then this creates an avenue for a set of social rules to actually happen, meaning then this looks like individuals actually knowing that they have limitations, for example, that they can still give voluntarily, but then they have limitations of what their capacity is, meaning then they create boundaries of what can actually give and what can actually get. And secondly, B, to actually know what boundaries actually exist within the person that you're asking for help, but with asking help for, that they still have limitations in the capacity. These are the types of social rules that happen with the normalization happens. Since it becomes a social norm, being able to get more in the long term help and cooperation between Filipinos. This is true because it looks like more likelihood to actually help each other, where social trust actually increases at the very long run, and the long term relationships being more successful in the long run, especially in countries like Philippines, where there's already so much individuals that are actually very communal, where in each neighbor actually have trust and love for each other. For example, this will work, especially. The impact here is simple. We tell you that stronger communities, this looks like individuals who are willing to help others, their neighbors, their families. This looks like vulnerable individuals increasing more their survivability without having to go through illegal ways to actually get money, for example. So this looks like the better solution for the individuals within the Philippines. Secondly, our counterfactual is simple because we tell you that the lack of because even if they tells us that there's already even if they tell us there's harms regarding this, such as nepotism, for example, we tell you that is not utang na loob. We tell you this is just lack of good governance within the Philippines. When there's individuals who get people within their companies, for example, that's not utang na loob. This is just lack of good governance within the Philippines when they lack the proper receipts, for example, or the proper contracts, for example, to actually put these individuals within their place. This is the type of harm that is being very speculative when it comes to a government side, because at the end of the day, this is not stop corruption, for example. It just removes the idea of being empathetic to those who are actually in need, for example. So with the normalization, we have boundaries where individuals draw the line in what is supposed to be given and what is supposed to be gained, where our counterfactual still stands at the very end of the day. And no matter how many times government tries to tell us that there's type of entitlement that actually exists, utang na loob still has the benefits that stands, such as helping those individuals who are in marginalized sectors so that they wouldn't go through illegal ways to just gain money, to just solve these types of issues within the Philippines. Because utang na loob being normalized just solves one of the key issues within the Philippines that already exist. Because we tell you that there's still going to be call out mechanisms for those individuals who does have who actually has those types of harms at the very end of the day. With those reasons, proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Let's have Gobweb. Here.
Here. Let me turn my camera. Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas Nicolo P. Kililan. I'm the government whip. Preferred pronouncing him. Preferred I times anytime. I'd like to give a shout out to my mother, who's always supported me in my debate journey. I'd like to shout out my father, who is currently overseas working to provide for me and provide for my family. I love you, mommy and dad. Um, Thank you to my Lola, whose house I'm debating in right now. Thank you to my Lolo, who is just my Lolo. He's over there right now. He's an urn. Thank you to my debate mates. Thank you to Az. Thank you to Cohesion. Thank you to Luke. Thank you to Kayla, Sarah, Jasmine, Jamie, Precious, everyone. I'd like to thank my best friends as well. I'd like to thank Zaya, Luke, Red, and others. Ben as well. I'd like to thank Ben. I love you, Ben. And lastly, I would like to thank my beautiful girlfriend. I would like to thank my beautiful girlfriend, Caris Langam. And I love you. I'm sorry that I skipped out on Valentine's Day in order to debate at this tournament. I'll make it up to you, I promise. So, anyway, I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. When the devil approaches you and he gives you his eye, you ought to believe that he'll ask for your soul in return. Utang ng loob is an eye for an eye. It's an eye for your whole being. Now, I want to ask this first question. How is utang ng loob different from regular exchange? First is that regular decent human exchange is equal in transaction and exchange, whereas utang ng loob is often unequal and requires almost immediate preparation, lasting almost an entire lifetime. I'm bringing this framing back from my Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister because this will serve as context to my clashes and comparisons. Now, some responses. First is that, yes, we do agree with government that Filipinos are very communal and supportive. However, that is exactly where the issue stems from. It's that they are too communal, and because they're more communal and very small communal traits have this, is that because they are too communal, they are more eager to exclude those who don't conform to the communal values they're trying to push onto people, which is in this context, utang ng loob. Second response is that people won't actually be ashamed to reach out in our world. Because in your world, they are ashamed, they are terrified to reach out because they are scared of having to complete this transactional deal and perhaps having to deal with terms that they possibly can't satisfy. Their response is that they say government is being dismissive because we address utang na loob is not obligation, because they say that it has no obligation because no contract or policy and it's not legally binding. This is the problem in the first place. You are forced to conform to outside the legal system. Instead, you have to abide by the social contract between your community and parties, because if you don't like it, if you don't want to abide by the social contract, if you don't want to abide by utang ng loob, you're excluded by the community. So firstly, it's not actually voluntary. So this destroys opposition's first argument that it's voluntary. Secondly, is that there's actually contingent. It's actually contingent to acceptance and cooperation for community, which means that we co-opt the communal point of government opposition's argument. Last is that abuse won't happen in their world because it's over normalized. No, that's not what this means. It actually means that they will be more desensitized to these abuses and issues within this utang na loob system because they're already so over normalized to it. They see it every day. So why would they ever bat an eye to it? This shows the issues within opposition's case panel. Okay, now allow me to move on to my first clash. Which world are relationships more genuine? Firstly, comparatively, in their world, there's no compromise. There is no middle ground. This makes it so people are less amicable because they're not normalized to picking something and only this thing. Because they're normalized to picking something and only this thing, and they will not accept any middle ground. This means, as a trickle down, that Filipino society would rather much choose immediate gratification or transactional gratification on societal issues that encourage societal discussion because they won't feel that it's enough, because words aren't enough. They want actual material value. In our world, we allow for people to be satisfied in the relationships that they have and allows them to be able to find their middle ground and intelligent discussions to find a solution to their issues, especially systematic and personal issues. Secondly, on the metric of depth, the issue is that utang ng loob accrues interest, which means that people end up having to give standards that are too high for people to satisfy. And people won't combat this because it's utang ng loob. This is bad because it builds unrealistic expectations for love and relationships that has to be transactional. This means that no one actually builds real relationships and therefore have no real support systems in life. Yet, additionally, there will be guilt tripping from people because the pressure from utang ng loob tends to crush people into agreeing with things that they realistically wouldn't agree with because of the fear of exclusion from their communities. Okay, third is that love is for love, not obligation, which makes relationships less authentic, which leads into fake relationships based on investment and transaction. This leads me to my sixth analysis, which is that parents will end up restricting kids and only see their children as investments. They tell them to only stay in their city. They tell them to go to this school, pick this strand, pick this job, and don't say this, don't ever go against me because you owe me. I've raised you your whole life. Basically, what happens in opposition's world is that they restrain people based off their own selfishness and the issue here, the harm here is that you stop these people, especially the most vulnerable, especially the kids from self-actualizing. Okay. Our world allows for more authenticity because we don't let love and relationships be completely transactional. We propagate love and genuine human connection. What this does, it allows for discussion because when someone makes a mistake, you're not forcing them to give to you. Instead, you encourage discussion because you don't want a repayment via favor or product. You simply want understanding, which is something the opposition does not have in their world. And lastly is that you are stigmatized against and demonized even if they don't have people who don't follow utang loob are stigmatized and demonized even if they don't have completely the means to follow through. This is completely unfair to everyone because if you commit a transgression against a person and if you don't repay them with exactly what they want, what happens? They get mad at you. They label you horrible things, and at the extremes, they bring you to court and they sue you for everything you have. And additionally, you still get excluded from your community. So look at all the harms that opposition has accrued compared to the benefits. It's very little. Okay, on to my second clash. Where does the social culture of the Philippines become stronger and genuine? Firstly, is that the whole reason the government of the Philippines sucks is because utang ng loob ruins the concept of democracy. How? Because by making it so that people are coerced to vote for politicians through dole outs and vote buying, you actually remove the traits of actual democracy from our society. Because instead of deciding through critical thinking, issues such as vote buying, where people end up being indebted to these politicians, end up voting for them. This shows that systematic issues and government corruption comes from utang na loob have effectively dispelled their benefits by pointing out the biggest harms that they ignore on their bench. Last is that we break away from US and Western influence, because if we never had utang na loob in the first place, we would never have adopted so many Western ideals. We would have never allowed them to exploit us up to this day with their military bases and operations that continue to subsist in the Philippines. Lastly is that even if you believe in up that, hey, utang na loob is a good thing because it promotes goodness and wealth transaction, we still win on these three metrics. First is that there's less systematic corruption in our world because we prevent the issue of vote buying and dole outs from ever occurring, which makes it so that incompetent politicians aren't voted for their money that they give to the people, but rather through actual merit and to the things that they deserve and qualified for. Secondly, is that there's less stigmatization inside our world because we don't have the communal values that people will simply exclude someone because they don't conform to the values that they want to posit onto people. And lastly, is that we encourage actual discussion and authentic love in our world because we don't propagate a relationship of transaction and plasticness. For those and all those reasons, Thomas Kililan, proud to propose.
All right, thank you for that speech. Let's have output. Here.
Uy. Ay, with my mic open. Parang kukunin ako ni Lord. Or dito. Okay, ayan. Very good. Hi, hello everyone. I'm Jess, and preferred pronouns are she, her, please shout outs before I move on to my speech. I'm not wearing my makeup, so I might look so bummed out. But yeah, this team up is a very impulsive team up. That's why I'd like to thank Jal and Ras for this very impulsive for this very impulsive one. And also thank you MSU because grabe walay light, gadagan-dagan me. And also to Kuya Cody, hello po Kuya Cody, thank you so much. And Chatty and Mamon and so much more. Thank you so much and congratulations guys. And shout out Asrap, hi Asrap. And to Watermelon, to friends, to Mama, to Papa in Heaven and so much more. And I'm so sorry Nudge. To our Prime Minister in Tribunes, I'm so sorry for not telling you that we'll compete today because I honestly, out of impulse lang talaga ito siya. Okay. With nothing more to add, I'll be starting my speech. In 3, 2, 1. I think that it is a common knowledge that you cannot fill a cup with an empty cup. I think that's how normalization or of utang na loob really works. I think that government is clearly lost when it comes to understanding what really a normalization really is. It is a narrative that works generally within the society that means to say that there is going to be attraction or going to be discussions towards harnessing this some sort of narrative, because in the very first place we say that we concede that there is some sort of harms when it comes to abuse towards it, when it comes to entitlement towards it. Now inside opposition by the normalization, you better this means to say we safeguard or assure that there is going to be a call out, that is going to be a standard. It's going to make us a new societal standard that it's okay that you cannot give 50 pesos because you only have 30 pesos, for example, in your wallet, and it's okay it's okay that you cannot totally give your out your very best because you are lacking. That means to say when it comes to individual lens, we safeguard people for not pushing themselves so much more. Retrospectively, people use this narrative as a form of something that is negative. Precisely why there's a generational trauma, for example. Precisely why those millennials have heard all their life that they are an investment. For example, that means to say that through this negative narrative, we build some sort of stigma towards asking for help. Precisely why when it comes to when it comes to like social communication, we're so having a hard time because the first hand that we would think this person might think of might think of this as something that I have to like replace at the very reciprocate at the very end. On side on under comparative on side government, I they keep number one is that they keep on demonizing utang na loob by packaging a social issue towards this culture. We say inside opposition.
Hello? Did they get cut off? Or is it just on my end? All right. They got cut off. All right. Thank you, Pring. Let's just wait for like 5 minutes for them to come back.
It seems that their electricity was cut off, according to the GC.
I see. I'll ask Cap. But let's just wait for a bit for them.
Hi guys.
Okay na yan?
Okay na to, at least napasok ka.
Sorry. May I, Diyos ko Lord. May I confirm if I'm being heard and audible or like mag-off na lang ko sa wala na nag-off ba?
Yep, you're
Okay,
audible and visible.
May I confirm po if I'm audible?
Yep, you're audible. So for up with,
I assume that I'm... Wait.
uh,
Sumani. Lord. Why can't I hear anything? I'm trying to reconnect po. Am I being... May problem imong phone dyan.
Pero like na usap to naman na. Ipakita na imo dagway at least ba. Si sayang to. Ayun, kita ka.
Kita ako?
Oo.
Hopefully, I am... Oh, ayun. Yun. Nax. Hopefully, I am being heard and being seen. I think I also paused my timer po. I think I stopped sa... Shibal. Ako nag-stop. Where did I stop po?
so we paused your timer. It paused at 2 minutes 43 seconds. The last thing I heard was you were rebutting the responses coming from Gov, specifically the demonization of Utang na loob, and you were kind of rebuilding like the counterfactual on your side.
Thank you so much. Okay. Resuming. Whew. I love you, I miss you. Resuming in 3, 2, 1. Government is clearly demonizing utang na loob by packaging it as something that is present as something that is present in social issues. For example, is the corruption that is happening, because I feel like they still don't understand the difference between social. They still don't understand the difference between social issues and the culture that keeps on thriving, and then we are going to prove to you on why this culture is important at very best. So we say that the corruption or like the systemic problem or like vote buying or having utang na loob to Bongo just because he got Malasakit Center. He was able to like pass Malasakit for Malasakit Center, for example. We understood on side of opposition that this is some sort of like a responsibility towards these legislators, for example, because we are already living in a 20th century. They cannot keep on telling us that people no longer don't know what they deserve. For example, this is precisely why I regret motion, because we have a timeline that we are trying to compare. For example, is that on how activists are very active when it comes to like protecting our rights as a Filipino citizen, for example, for them to like fight for independence, for example, because we have this some sort of a narrative that we have a gratitude that we have to fulfill to our ancestors. For example, was on how guerrillas was able to keep our independence, for example. That means to say when it comes to gratitude, that means to say we better have that on side of opposition. The authenticity of relationship that the government is trying to propose is still very much going to happen, because that's where you're able to know that what you're able to know what your limitations are. That means to say there's this some sort of understanding. There's this some sort of understanding towards what I can offer and towards what is going to be offered to me. No, number now inside government, they have been very uncharitable because they only centralize or framed it as if like utang na loob does not really like do anything to our culture, because because Filipino identity is very communal, and now it's losing it because we say that we differ from Western people because we have this some sort of like communal culture inside government, and these people are going to like be very individualistic because that is something that is like they romanticize, because like for example these Westerns are like more progressive. For example, that means to say we lose our culture of bayanihan. For example, that means to say on side opposition, new understanding towards this narrative, because this is exacerbated within the society. That means if I give you 50 pesos and you only have 30 pesos, it's just going to like be all right, and it's more of like an initiative than of an obligation that you have to answer at the very end. I think that is already clarified by both speakers from opposition side, that there is no contract of like utang na loob, but rather an initiative that I have to like cater at most. Lastly is that we win in terms of like best case, because because in how we make people reach out to other people without having the pressure on like a certain negative perception towards utang na loob, because it's going to like be embarrassing for me to ask for help. And in terms of like worst case on how people might be going to like be exploited is unlikely, because we have already told you on how it's going to like make a new social standard social standard. For example, on opposition side, the issue that we were able to win is, number one, you're able to safeguard yourself and still not lose yourself along the way. Number two is that how you maintain the culture, and number three, we get a better relationship on how we get a better relationship, authentic relationship at very end. With all those, thank you, and I love you, MSU.
All right, thank you for that speech. A reminder to the debaters to please be mindful of your time. We will stop taking notes when it's already overtime. With that said, let's have op reply. Here.
Hi, am I audible?
Yep, you're audible.
Okay, because of the fact that MSU is very charitable when it comes to ilaw and internet and so much more, I'm not unfortunately not be able to turn on the camera because its internet super slow. I hope that's okay. Without all those reasons, I feel like I'm gonna start my opposition speech. Whew. Okay. Starting. Oh, timer, please. Thank you so much. Starting my speech. Opposition reply in 3, 2, 1. This speech is going to prove to you why opposition has already won in 3 main cases, in 3 main clashes in the very first place. Firstly, when we talk about voluntary help versus the obligation that you actually have, for example, when it comes to utang na loob, this completely false, and government actually tried to claim that normalizing utang na loob actually creates pressure, for example, or entitlement when individuals, for example, your parents have give birth to you, for example, and they themselves tell you or ask you to do certain things just because they were the ones who actually gave you life, for example. They tell you this is wrong because opposition was already able to prove to you that this is false, that normalization actually does not necessarily mean obligation. It is something that is voluntary, something that is encouraged, and something that is more of an incentive to actually help those vulnerable individuals within the Philippines, for example, and not forced through moral or legal situation, for example, at the very end of the day. So by making gratitude, for example, utang na loob, something more of a social norm, individuals then around the globe, or specifically in the Philippines, then know that each individual that they ask for help have limits, for example, that they have a certain capacity to actually help individuals. And government was never necessarily even able to actually prove that normalization actually forces people to actually act beyond what actually is going to be stated in the very first place. So on this clash alone, opposition already wins. Secondly, when we talk about then how communal support actually thrives, for example, when it comes to normalization, and actually we get stronger communities and stronger credibility and trust when it comes to the entire normalization actually happening. Opposition was able to prove to you that normalization, utang na loob, loob actually encourages people to ask for help, to actually be able to ask their friends, for example, without having to fear of being judged or being scrutinized at the very end of the day. We tell you that vulnerable individuals can actually access aid without actually having to break laws, because at the very first place, vulnerable actors actually are need and such a big problem when it comes to the status quo of the Philippines. Meaning then, by having normalization, it becomes a social norm. Meaning then, there is less likelihood of being over reliant when it comes to utang na loob, or actually having more abuse, because this then means individuals will be able to actually have call outs when it comes to those individuals who do actually over rely or who actually do have abuse, because government argued about entitlement, like parents demanding too much. But we tell you, on this clash alone, opposition already wins. Thirdly, on long-term effects and what actually happens in the very long run, opposition was able to prove to you that normalization of utang na loob actually helps reduce inequalities that happens within the roots of the Philippines in the long run. So those who are actually in marginalized sectors actually get better future, for example. So without the normalization, communities have less support and are being more scrutinized at the very end of the day, and more inequalities actually persist within the roots of the Philippines, whether it's in Zamboanga, Barm, or whatever it can be. We on government side, they have never been able to prove to you this, and only failed to address this. So they focus on individual ingenuity, because they never prove how voluntary social norms or those sense of gratitude actually is possible at the very end of the day. We tell you that on our house, we actually have true value. We give you the best and worst case scenarios. We actually prove to you what actually happens, and we are charitable, and we cater to those who actually are in need, to those who actually gives out, and to all the collective within the Philippines, those citizens, and all overall. We tell you that government side are still unengaging and are still uncharitable when it comes to our cases and the entire motion in itself. With all those reasons said, we are glad to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Let's have Gov reply. Here.
Hello, may I confirm if I am visible and audible?
Yes to both.
Okay. My name again is Kayla Castro. Preferred pronouns are she and her. I will be starting the reply speech in 3, 2, 1. Go. Upluck's engagement, because they don't answer our question throughout the debate. You say there is going to be discussions about utang na loob and its abuses, but this is not feasible because it's already over normalized. So why would they question something that is effectively status quo? 2, the government's case continues to try to reframe utang na loob as something good. They continue and try to insist on finding the light in such an already shown pragmatically is already harmful, just because they say it's a part of our culture, it's a part of being bayanihan. But panel, are you serious? Are you really going to accept the entire case? How dare you? I know, you know that that's the exact problem here, because it has been so normalized. Look at the state of our nation now. Tell me if this actually has done good and not cause corruption to our country, not only on the national level, but even in families, friends, and etc. Look how we act as a country where we are stuck in soft colonization, where our economy becomes compromised when we believe that we owe these people this and that, where it has been shown even in the Filipinos themselves, the citizens, CITIZENS, again, who act in a way where it's not an eye for an eye anymore. It becomes me giving my entire life because you gave me your eye. 3, they also try to reframe by saying that utang na loob isn't a lifelong debt, but rather not an obligation at all, which is not only false, because not only does it state in the info slide that it is an obligation, but even if we entertain that framework for the sake of this debate, it does not work because it does not destroy any of the harms on our side. Even if it is a moral obligation, it's still going to cause vote buying, it's still going to cause parental guilt tripping, and generational trauma. It's still going to cause predators to take advantage of these vulnerable people they know don't have a spine to stand up for themselves. Did opposition respond to this? No, they do not. So not only have we just destroyed their entire framework, but this means we have destroyed every other argument that is reliant on this framework. So what is left on opposition side? Nothing. At least here in government, we tell you who is gonna be doing these harms, why they do these harms, and how they do these harms. Opposition fails to engage. Opposition keeps trying to accept utang na loob as a face value of just simple gratitude and reciprocity, but they fail to realize that although we would try to entertain this, they forget that we are Filipinos. It is in the context of Filipinos where we have this normalization of people pleasing, of giving and giving and giving, which leads to dangerous precedents that OP continues to disregard. So with the fact in itself, we have already devoured in the entire debate, and we are already winning this debate while opposition stays stagnant. So what does this mean then? 1, but even if we continue to entertain their now broken arguments for the sake of engagement. They say utang na loob is an eye for an eye, but oftentimes than most, it's really not. Here in government, we provide you multiple examples how it's not actually a fair exchange. How are you gonna argue that a politician taking advantage of a Filipino's poverty by paying them money for a vote is an eye for an eye? That's exploitation using utang na loob. Parents refusing to let their child chase their dreams and instead stay home with them. Is that an eye for an eye? A child being born into this world is incapable of consenting to be born again. They cannot choose to live with these parents and they cannot opt out of this at all. That's not an eye for an eye. That's guilt tripping using utang na loob. The debt has collected over time thanks to utang na loob. We beat them on the metric of debt by proving these harms on their side. To actually considering how this has looked like in history, we have given a lot of examples, not only how it affects people on the ground, like parents who coerce you to stay even if you want to go out or abroad for studies, or friends who tell you to pay for their food all the time just because they help you pass their tests. It looks like people making chismis about you and shaming you for not helping back. And the way it has affected our state and our nation now, do you really want history to repeat itself, panel, where we continue to dig this hole for us, where we continue to dig ourselves in debt after debt after debt because of the given fact that people, especially in Filipino, like to give and give? Because of this already normalized thing in the world, it incentivizes us to give back and back, not for the sake of being kind, but because they don't want to be shamed. They already grew up in this world wherein someone gives you you have to repay them. It is already this embedded mindset in this Filipino people. It is inherently better in our world because we cut the harm off from the source. It is easier to beat the harms in our world than it is in theirs. At least there are more authentic relationships in our world, so we beat them on the authenticity metric by proving the actors are safer in our world. And we are proud to propose. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that speech. Debaters, you may now cross houses. And for the panelists, please go to room 1 on Discord, particularly the Delibs room. Thank you so much, guys, and congratulations on finishing grants.
Grass. What's my mom, bro?
Oh my God.
You guys did amazing.
You guys did great. I loved your arguments.
Bye, y'all were really good, bye.
Wait lang, kami din. Hi guys! Hey!
Oh my God, look at the
Yung laptop.
I mean,
Thank you for doing that!
let's go, Andre!
Breathe on. We love you.
I love you!
We love you.
Wait!
Guys.
Thank you for watching!
You guys are so good, by the way. We love your arguments.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to this debate. Hello, Ma. Ayaw ni Tantawa, please.
Sa